Hi, welcome to the Gastroenteritis Blues. I'm Dan Valpone. I'm here with Emily Cannell. Emily, I don't have a Steve question for you because I don't know how he comes up with them, but how is your weekend going?
My weekend is good. I've been eating a lot of hamburgers and wearing 4th of July themed outfits. So I put a little hat on Luna today, like a little Uncle Sam hat. I can
Does
tweet
she like that or was she okay
no,
with that?
not particularly,
Yeah, dogs
but
hate
I've
that stuff.
been putting stuff on her head all day. So I'll share the picture with the hat. I also balanced a glass of wine on her head, which was dangerous and precarious, but she was able to manage it for like 2 seconds. So that was good.
So very eventful week in the NBA, especially, I feel like, you hear a lot of rumors start to ramp up like Wednesday, but then Thursday at 6 was the start of the league new year, start of free agency. And you hear stuff throughout the day. The big news, which we'll kind of circle around to later, but it would feel wrong to not start with it because it kind of kicked everything off, was the Kevin Durant trade request, which still have no idea when or if that will come to fruition. But, that is the main story lingering over the NBA right now. But let's start with the big Sixers news, which is basically the three signings they made were all right at six for the most part, like between 6 and 6:15. So Sixers signed PJ Tucker on the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. They signed Danuel House on the biannual exception. I should clarify, PJ Tucker at 3 years, $33 million on that non-taxpayer MLE. That is fully guaranteed. Danuel House on the BAE for 2 years, which comes out to $8.5 million. And Trevelin Queen, who is another G-League MVP, won it the year after B-Ball Paul. So this past year. I think that we're thinking this is an Exhibit 10 contract, which is basically would mean they would have his G-League rights, but he wouldn't really be with the big team, which is kind of disappointing because he seems pretty interesting. But what were your thoughts on these signings, Emily? I mean, how do you feel about each of these guys? Did you feel, a little underwhelmed with what the Sixers have managed to do so far? No really surprising moves yet. Like, where are you at?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the PJ Tucker signing last week. I think that one was like pretty inevitable. So not surprised there. I'm fine with the contract. Even though he's an older player, I just think he brings like a kind of intensity and an aggressiveness that this team needs. So I think that will be good. Danuel House, that one I wasn't expecting. I don't know that there was like rumblings about that one, but I'm fine with it. It's a good player. Adds depth to the roster, which we need. And then I'm always happy to collect a G-League MVP. We're big B-Ball Paul fans in this house.
Well, not you, because you hate all of our guests.
Yeah, I like B-Ball Paul. He wished me a happy wedding.
He did.
So we should have like clipped that and like played it at our wedding. But
well, you couldn't have, because he said it as the wedding was happening.
That's true. Oh God. But yeah, I love a guy. I love a G-League guy. I don't know. I like the development that happens there. I like guys that come out of there. I had a soft spot for Robert Covington, who was also a G-League guy, played there for a while before coming to the NBA. So I am more than happy to have him. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I got.
I want to correct myself a little bit. So, because I just saw this on Twitter from Michael Scotto, that the Sixers signed Trevelin Queen to a 2-year, $3.56 million deal, $6 million deal, which is guaranteed for just $330,000 this season and fully non-guaranteed for next season.
Sounds like a great contract.
Sure. Yeah, when I look at the PJ Tucker signing. I really like it if the Sixers have like a big, good all-around wing at the 3, which is obviously really hard to come by. But I like Tucker with Maxey and Harden and Embiid. I don't love him with Tobias necessarily.
You don't love anyone with Tobias, though.
Well, that's pretty true. It just feels very slow at the forward positions. And, obviously they'll have to try to make it work, but they're both kind of 4s. Neither of them is really a wing. And we're just so desperate for wings here. Now, we keep hearing these rumors. Maybe there's a Tobias trade coming. It's at least still been talked about. I know Paul Hedrick has said that his sources at the Sixers say that that's not likely to happen. But I'm sure that those conversations are at least happening. I have no doubt the Sixers are open to it. And so, if there is another move to be made, that becomes very interesting. But for now, I don't know. He's a good player. He's an upgrade without a doubt. I'm just still worried about that wing position. Danuel House is a wing. He's a good player. He's not like fixing everything, but again, he's another upgrade. The Sixers have gotten better players, which is where they were at. Kind of all you could ask for. I mean, we didn't even think they would necessarily have these exceptions. Harden is, it seems, taking less, although he still hasn't signed this contract. They've been meeting in the Hamptons for the last 72 hours and counting. So who knows? This is just nonstop. Probably, I bet Doc put another chair in front of the door. So, this could go on. This could go on forever. They might be negotiating through next season. I don't know. We haven't heard anything. The next thing that we need to talk about is it still keeps coming up that the Sixers want Eric Gordon. Keith has had that. Who else had that? I want to say Shams might have had something on that. Again, Paul has said that he hears that is not going to happen. But I have no doubt from everything we've heard that these talks are at least happening because too many people are talking about this. And my thing with Eric Gordon, we talked about this last week, is just like, he's another guard. Like, he'll be our 5th rotation guard because we have Shake, Maxey, Harden, and Melton. And, I know that Shake doesn't have there's a lot of not Shake fans, but Shake was completely playable in the playoffs last year. He was one of the few guys who actually showed up. I have no problem having him as the 4th guard. I don't think that's the position of need. And I recognize wings are hard to come by, but if we're gonna do some kind of deal where you're taking, doing what needs to be done to either, there's 2 options here, which are I guess 3, which is Harden could take a ton less, which he's not going to take any more less, I don't think. But it becomes Furkan, Matisse, Shake, and someone else just to be able to match that salary and stay under the hard cap to get Gordon. And because the Sixers are hard capped at the tax apron now, because they did use their non-taxpayer MLE to get PJ Tucker, they are hard capped. And that is unappealing, right? You could turn Matisse into some kind of asset. It seems there's teams that want him. I'm not in a rush to give away, Shake. Anyone can have Furkan, that's fine. But I think George Niang is another guy you might have to give who whatever. I don't, in a team that's so not deep already, I don't love, cobbling together a bunch of guys who could be fringe rotation players. Who knows, maybe one takes a step forward when you have, talking about 4 guys, right? One could get a little better. One could, be playable against a certain team in the playoffs. So I don't love doing all that. And unless you're getting real value for Tobias and you're getting Eric Gordon and Harrison Barnes or something like that, if you're just getting off of Tobias to get Gordon, I think that's, a talent downgrade. And again, you're still not getting a wing. You're doing all this to still not get a wing. And so I don't really get that at this point, unless there's something bigger going on and Gordon is a smaller part of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I've always been kind of saying that for a team that lacks depth, I'm not in the business of cobbling salaries together and trading a bunch of people for one person, because that doesn't help our depth problem. And like you said, like any of these players could make a jump. They also could like, like Shake could get hot in like a second round series or in a stretch in the regular season that we need for like seeding purposes. Like he's been known to do that and he's on a good contract. Like I'm not like really eager to get off of him. Eric Gordon is a good player. I think he would fit in with our team, but we don't need like you said, that's just like a lot of guards and we have good guards. So I'm not like dying to do it. If they do it, I'm not going to be like, this is a season ruining move. Like everything has gone to shit now, but it's just like not the move that I am looking for them to make. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I like Eric Gordon a lot as a player. Even at his age, I really like Eric Gordon. I think he's a very good offensive player. And we know he plays well with Harden. But after the move for Melton, I don't really get it. Before that, I was in on it. And I think the Sixers are at 16 guys now if you count Trevelin Queen and James Harden. And so, there's probably a roster condensing move, maybe a 2-for-1, but when we start talking about like a 4-for-1 or a 5-for-1, I don't think that's it doesn't feel good. It doesn't, especially when you're talking Matisse, who probably has value to someone else. And you're talking Shake, who like I think still has value as a player on this team. Especially, on like a $2 million contract. So I'm not really in a rush to do that. Let's just get into it. I know it's not going to happen, but I fully have my hopes up. And I know it's so silly. In my brain, it's not happening. But in my heart, Kevin Durant is a Sixer. And I know a lot of people would be devastated because obviously that includes, that means Tyrese Maxey's a net. And I know that would be, I would be upset to see him go. But I mean, if the trade, and again, it's not going to happen. But if you start pulling together like Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, or maybe you flip Thybulle for a pick or something that you include, Jaden Springer or maybe Shake, you unprotect that 2027 first to Brooklyn and give them 2029 as well. Give them a pick swap every other year. Give them a bunch of second round picks. Like it's probably not the best package, but a lot of teams kind of seem to be chickening out on this. And I haven't fully given up hope that like no one's gonna buck up and make a good offer. Because teams can be, I don't even want to say risk averse because Kevin Durant isn't a risk, but just like transaction averse. Like they see more risk in what's different than what they have. And I think that Daryl doesn't necessarily do that. And I think that's probably, that is an asset of his in terms of his way of thinking. And, I would be devastated to give Maxey. And I'm sure it's not going to happen. I'm sure Kevin Durant is going to go to Phoenix or somewhere else. But DeAnthony Melton, James Harden, maybe flip those two because Harden probably played point guard. But James Harden, DeAnthony Melton, Kevin Durant, PJ Tucker. And that's a context where I love PJ Tucker and Joel Embiid team is extremely, extremely good. Now, I think the other guy on the Nets is probably more realistic, and we'll talk about him later, but he's less exciting, obviously. And all I'm saying, like, again, I know it's not happening. I'm not calling it. I'm not saying Kevin Durant's going to be a Sixer. I'm very confident he won't. But there's a sliver of me that says, you know what? Maybe he will. And that sliver of me has all my brain right now. I'm very optimistic. I'm not optimistic in terms of I think it's going to happen. Like, not optimistic. Like my brain is like, oh, but like I'm in a happy place where I'm thinking about Kevin Durant as a Sixer. You know what I mean? I know it's not likely. I'm not optimistic on the odds, but I'm thinking about the positive possibility. And I mean, that team would be awesome. We would be easy title favorites. We know, there's been the reports that, Joel wants them to do everything they can to get Durant. And again, it sucked to see Maxey go, but in my opinion, you can tell me what you think, but I mean, that's just such a slam dunk. Of course you do what you can to give Kevin Durant. And, I always can't come back to this, and I'll say the same thing when we talk about Kyrie later in the episode, as I make the same case. But, I want to see Joel win a ring, and I don't have to love everyone else around him. Now, I don't want them to go sign Miles Bridges, but I don't have to love the rest of the team. I have to be able to tolerate the rest of the team. And I love Joel, and I want to see him get a ring. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's like reminiscent of like LeBron to Philly. Like people were like, maybe it'll happen.
Never know.
It could happen.
Now the difference there obviously was LeBron was a free agent.
Just making a decision.
The hope was he would come here like by choice, whereas like with Kevin Durant, it's like the Sixers have to beat other teams. Of course.
Yeah. It is really interesting with the Kevin Durant trade is there hasn't been, maybe I just haven't been on Twitter enough, but there hasn't been any like confirmed like offers or like even like that like reliable rumblings of confirmed offers for him. Like it just kind of like everyone's kind of holding their cards very close to their vest, which I think is very interesting. The other thing that I just think is very hilarious is that Kyrie announces that he's going to opt in, and then Kevin Durant said, "I'm out of here." But yeah, Kevin Durant is probably like one of 3 players in the league that I would be willing to give Maxey for. So I would do it. Obviously, it's Kevin Durant. But I really don't think that it's going to happen.
No, I don't think it's likely. But it would be really, really awesome.
It would be very cool. He would look great in Sixers colors. He
would look great next to Joel Embiid. I have a feeling that he's not in like a hurry to get back with Harden, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing before we go to an ad, James Harden, as I mentioned earlier, has been in contract negotiations with the Sixers. Now we're recording this, I will say, Sunday night. So this is going to come out Monday afternoon. Who knows? Who knows if this will be resolved by then? But at this point, they've been meeting since I think like early Saturday, maybe Saturday early afternoon. This is Sunday night, so it's been a while. Still no news. Not even an update on how these contract negotiations are going. We know he's, seems to be taking some kind of pay cut. I'll say I'm not worried about it. I think it gets sorted out. The Sixers don't seem worried about it. We haven't heard anything else about other teams eyeing this situation or Harden taking meetings with any other team. So I'm not worried. Are you worried?
No, I'm not worried. And also, like, I'm pretty sure that I think this is like a multi-day meeting situation. I don't think it's like we're going to sit down in a room and get this done today. I think it's like we're going to talk on Saturday, and you're going to go to Michael Rubin's house and party on Saturday night and then be hungover on Sunday morning. And then like maybe we'll get back together on Monday for like bloodies and brunch and get the deal done. So I'm not like, I don't think it's like
It sounds like you've been to Michael Rubin's house in the Hamptons before. You know the agenda.
That would be very fun. It's not like a situation where people are like barricading James Harden in a room and he's like tweeting that he can't get out and no one knows where he is. I think it's just like we're in the Hamptons to party, and that's where rich people go on the 4th of July. And so that's where they're just going to get the deal done.
Yeah, I think it's probably something like that too. So we're going to go to an ad. When we get back, we're going to talk about the Sixers were named as one of 3 suitors by Shams Charania for Kyrie Irving. And we are back from this ad. So we talked about this. We were eyeing this situation, I think, last week. I was the only one of you, Steve, and I who said that I would trade for Kyrie Irving. I said I would not give Tyrese Maxey for Kyrie Irving, but I would give Matisse Thybulle and Tobias Harris for Kyrie Irving. As I said before the ad, Shams Charania said that the Sixers were one of 3 suitors for Kyrie Irving. And our Liberty Ballers, Paul Hedrick, says that they are not interested in trading Kyrie Irving. So we kind of have some mixed messaging. But I think it's very interesting. It's funny because me and Dave Early argued forever about the Ben Simmons stuff, and I think we're the only people who really want Kyrie Irving to be a Sixer. So we're back together. But yeah, I mean, my thing on it is, I don't like Kyrie Irving. I think he's a weirdo. I've talked about this before. I hate all of his COVID stuff. I hate how the Nets fans I would, if Philly said he couldn't play, like I wouldn't advocate for him. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say, oh, he should but this is the situation we're in. He could play here. He's going to be unvaxxed either way, right? It's not changing anything. I don't like him as a guy, but like I said, I don't have to like everyone on the team. I want Joel to win, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't want them to sign someone who has mistreated women or done something else horrible. Like I said, I'm not I don't have my eye on is anyone gonna sign Miles Bridges? That guy should never play another game. You know what I mean? There's a certain level where it's no, you should not be on this team or any team, and I don't want you on the Sixers. And I think there's I don't like Kyrie, but there's obviously no one needs to draw a difference between someone who's done something completely awful or just Kyrie just kind of being a jackass. He's not that, and no one would say he is, right? So it's you just want to draw the distinction as I don't like him, but I don't have to like everyone, right? There's a certain level where it's no, thank you, stay away from our Sixers. But Kyrie, I just don't really like, you know what I mean? And I can kind of live with that if he helps Embiid win Irving. And I think there are valid concerns. He hasn't played a lot of games. He's either been hurt or just choosing not to play, basically. And I consider not getting vaccinated choosing not to play. Now, it's a different situation. He doesn't have to have the vaccine to play here. But to me, it's such a big talent upgrade over Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle or whatever the package is. And his value is low right now. We know that. If it doesn't work out, you get it off with Tobias a year early, and you go into next summer with, a lot more. I don't want to say space because we probably wouldn't have cap space, but at least that's pulling you away from the luxury tax a bit, and it gives you some flexibility there. And I just think that it's not a super high risk because losing Tobias and Matisse or that's something I think the package would look like, and maybe a pick. That doesn't feel super high risk to me. And I think it's very, very high reward. Even like I said with Eric Gordon, we have enough guards, but obviously Irving is much, much better. I mean, Irving is a top 20 talent in the league still. He struggled in the playoffs. And I think a lot of that was he hadn't been playing consistently all year. And hopefully that would be different here if he were to be here. But yeah, to me, I think it's something you do. I hate the anti-vax thing, but if we're giving Matisse, I feel like it's a wash on that front. So,
anti-vaxxer for an anti-vax.
Yeah, right. If we have to have one, they might as well be a good basketball
the
player.
Better one.
Yeah, Matisse is a horrible NBA player. So it's yeah, we might as well get an all-star if we have to deal with this. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I just think I wouldn't do it. I think Kyrie is a team killer. I don't need his.
The counterpoint I will say is that the locker room kind of seemed like it sucked already.
Who, ours or
yeah, I think it's ours is. I mean, Ben was out all half of last year, and there was the same concern with Harden. Everyone seemed to kind of quit in the playoffs. Do we have that? We might as well get some talent, right? The bar doesn't seem to be how much lower is it going to go?
No, is that a game that we are willing to play? How much lower can the locker room get?
That'd be a funny game. I would like to see.
Oh my God. But yeah, I'm not here for the drama of will he play? Won't he play? What's he doing? But I agree that he's a very good player. And if it's Tobias and Matisse for him, I mean, that's a price I would be willing to pay for Kyrie. I just don't know if I'm willing to get involved in the Kyrie drama. This team has enough drama as it is at all times. And I just don't know if we need more. But on a strictly basketball talent level, of course, but it's just all of those other off the court things that I'm just like not like running to get involved in.
No, I get that. And if it were more than, if it were more than Tobias and Matisse and a couple second round picks or something like that, right? Like I would probably say like I'm good. I anticipate a fairly low package. He doesn't seem to have a ton of interest. I doubt the Nets are like rushing to take on Russell Westbrook, even just for the next year. Like besides that, he's making a ton of money, and it's only one more year. It's mostly just that he's like been pretty bad. Like he's worse than Tobias at this point. And so I think he's like gettable, and I think if it's that low, to me, with the talent upside, if he plays, like it's a risk worth taking. Especially because it doesn't like Harden might think he's a weird guy, and like that's fine. I don't think Harden really cares about that. I think what really bothered Harden and why he didn't want to play with Kyrie in Brooklyn was that Kyrie wasn't playing. And I think that was the real issue. Like Harden seems to be, no, I'm not saying that he's done everything right or anything, but his mindset seems to be, he wants to win. And I think if Irving's going to come here and play, and it's not a super high risk. Like I said, if you're giving Tobias and Tease, I think maybe he'd get on board. So, I mean, like you said, it could totally blow up and it could be a mess. And if anything, to me, you said like, you don't want any more drama. And like, I get that, but I also think we kind of enjoy it at times, right? Like when the Sixers like collapse, like it's better if there's drama to it versus like if it's just boring, it's just kind of sad. So
gives us so much stuff to talk about.
Right.
We're a pro drama podcast.
Honestly, like I was kind of like, I was so like, I hated it. I was like very sad about it when the Sixers lost this year, but like, I was almost like numb. It was like, of course, like the Sixers blew it, but like they didn't even do it in an interesting way. It was like, they just played terrible. Where it was like with the whole collapse against the Hawks, it was like, I was mad, like at least I felt something. Like it was like, I'd rather like, and like feel an emotion about it instead of like, just like the team. I think it could be if they have some way to do it, but that's enough Kyrie talk. What is it? This upcoming week, right? We have the summer league starting. Are we in Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
So I think the Sixers have a pretty good summer league roster. I don't have it in front of me. Do you have it in front of you? B-Ball Paul is playing. I think Springer is playing. Trevelin Queen is playing, right? So that's another G-League MVP. Who else is interesting that's on the team?
Champagne. Am I echoing for you?
You're not echoing for me, but Julian Champagny, yeah.
Yeah, I'm echoing for myself. That's okay. Charlie Brown Jr. is playing. Philip Petrusev. I can't say anything.
Yes, he was a second round pick in the Maxi draft, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Or was that the Springer draft? I think the Springer draft. Yes, the Springer draft. Yep.
Yeah, Miles Powell's playing.
That's a fun team.
Yeah, so I think Paul Reed is just playing in Salt Lake City and not going to Vegas, but he's going to go to Vegas and cheer on the team.
So who are you looking forward to seeing? Do we have a chance to win it all? What do you think?
We always have a chance to win it all in Summer League. It's where we shine. But yeah, I'm excited to see a lot of these guys play. I mean, I'd probably playing? No, Maxi is not playing.
Bassie.
Oh, Bassie's playing. Yeah.
All right, good.
I said Maxi. I was like, no, he's a little too good for Summer League at this point. But yeah, any of those guys that like have a chance to be like meaningful role players on this team and rotation players, I think will be really fun to watch. I'm also really excited to watch Trevelin Queen. Like I don't watch a ton of G League unless I go to like a random game. But like I said, I love a G League MVP. So I'm excited to see him play. It's good. It'll be fun to see Paul Reed apparently put on 10 pounds of muscle already this summer.
And he's jumping high now.
And he's jumping higher. He's really working on his game. So I just love that kid. So I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah, I was going to say Trevelin Queen too. I've never seen him play because I don't watch the G League, but people who like are into that kind of thing seemed excited about him. And so I'd like to see what all the excitement's about. I mean, he was G-League MVP. B-Ball Paul showed that he could turn that being G-League MVP into being a useful playoff rotation player. So let's see if Trevelin Queen could be good for us.
Yeah.
So I guess let's leave with some final thoughts. I'll give one final thought, and you can let me know anything else you have. I just want to say I'm very glad we haven't seen a center signing for this team. First of all, I should say I don't just have one more final thought. I just have to mention that all the signings that were coming in at 6, where it's like, they tampered with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like good player, good player, good player. DeAndre Jordan to the Nuggets, good player, good player, good player. And it's like you were tampering with DeAndre Jordan, like the worst player in the playoffs. And like, was this just to like boost Jokic's on-off numbers again? Like, what is the point of this signing? Like, he's so bad, he's so old. That was crazy to see. But I'm very glad we didn't sign a center. Millsap and Jordan are off the roster now.
I would have taken Drummond back though. I would have.
He was going to get more, although he got less than I thought. He only got like $3 million a year. But I mean, I liked the Dwight signing at the time. I thought he was on a minimum contract. He was better than he played better than a minimum contract, I thought. And I thought he was like fairly useful considering that contract. I thought that Drummond was very good for us while he was here. And I didn't expect that we would be able to bring him back. And even then, I would rather have Danuel House just because of positional need. I'm so glad though that they didn't sign like, a non-shooting big. Like, I mean, people like to say that the guys dock once. It's also I think been the guys that Morey has wanted, and I don't necessarily mean that as an insult because, like I say, I did like the Dwight and Drummond signings, and I like them here. I thought Drummond was awesome here. And he ended up being an important part of getting Harden. But the Millsap acquisition, the Harden trade, and the oh my God.
Not just the acquisition, but the minutes that were played.
The DeAndre Jordan signing and minutes were such a disaster, like a disaster. And I liked getting Drummond and Dwight because I thought they were like pretty good players. And just kind of get an old guy to like just kind of be big and like, oh, this guy was good 5 or 6 years ago. Like, let's throw him in there. He's that veteran presence. Like, those guys have sucked. Like, they bring in guys who have nothing left in the tank has been awful. And like, I'm glad they won't even have that option this season unless something changes. So knock on wood. But make it work with Paul Reed and Charles Bassey. And if Paul Reed fouls too much, then when the game's Embiid is out, then start Bassey and bring Paul Reed off the bench. If you can't make it work with those two, then Tobias Harris, if he's still here, is your small ball 5. I don't care. I'm so glad they didn't bring an awful center. I hated those minutes. We didn't really get them in the playoffs, besides the 2 games Embiid was out. But like that, I mean, the Jordan minutes tanked the series, right? Like, we should have won at least one of games 1 and 2, and we should have been up 3-2 going into game 6. Maybe that changes how they come out in game 6, or at the very least they have a game 7. Like, it should have been a different series, even with Embiid hurt, and it was a total disaster. I defended Doc all year. I thought that was. I would have fired him for playing Jordan those minutes. I meant that when I said it. I would be fine with him firing him now. I thought that was a complete disaster and so predictable. And I'm so glad that that kind of player. And again, if it's a good player, it's different. They're bad players. And I'm glad we didn't bring in a bad center that Doc is going to play the young guys. Final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we can give these if these young guys turn out to be like flaming terrible mistakes, then you do something at like the trade deadline in the middle of the season. And
but Paul Reed is already playable. Like, I have full confidence in him.
And I think Bassey is playable too. I think it'll be fine.
I think he is too. But at least Reed has even proved it,
Yeah. But yeah, I like how this roster is shaping up. I'm excited to see them play. I've said it a million times. I don't watch a lot of other teams outside of the Sixers. And when I do watch them play the Sixers, I'm normally watching the Sixers, not the other team. So like a lot of these guys that they've picked up, like I don't know a ton about. So I'm just excited. I like get excited based on what other people say online. And so I'm excited to watch them play and also like find out what their favorite sandwich is and all of the other weird things about basketball players that I like. So
yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting time for the Sixers. It was a sad time leaving the end of the season, but I liked the Melton pickup. I liked, you know, the signings we've had that now that Harden's taking less. I should say that, you know, and obviously this is coming from Harden's camp, but, you know, Shams was talking about how Harden started his, you know, off-season routine much earlier this year, you know, 2 weeks after the season. He thinks they can win this year. He's locked in. I'm hoping we get a much better version of Harden. He has to be better for us to have a chance. And I'm hoping maybe the hamstring's feeling better. I'm hoping he's worked on his catch and shoot threes. So we'll see. But have some optimism with him. And like I said, a big reason I'm excited is that I'm still, as dumb as it may be, not giving up on Kevin Durant. I refuse to do it. It won't happen. I get it. Whatever. I don't care. Until it doesn't happen, I'm gonna think about it. I think that's all we have. Please go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gastro Blues Pod, a Sixers podcast, or something like that. Follow Emily on Twitter at Third and Girl. Follow Drew at DAPelts13. Follow me and the podcast on all of our behalf, kind of sometimes, at Gastro Blues Pod. Follow Steve at Steve J. Littman. And again, I want to reiterate, we have a YouTube. Even if you don't want to watch the podcast, just subscribe, please. All right, just subscribe to it. It would be very appreciated. If you want to watch the podcast, if you want to like see me like fumbling around on my computer and like fixing my hair because I have hat head and all of that, then like great, you should watch it. I think that's a great option. But that's all. I'm excited to see what happens this week. Does Durant get moved at all? If he does, is it going to be soon? Who knows? That's the big thing I have my eye on. But Summer League starts. That's exciting. And again, there's other moves that could be made for the Sixers, right? Like I think Durant is the big domino to fall. And even if he falls somewhere else, then I think after that you have an Irving trade that's next. Even if that's not to the Sixers, maybe that after that, you know, those guys go, other teams look to trade, and you have maybe Tobias gets moved. Maybe he doesn't, but maybe Matisse gets moved, something like that. So it's an exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to see what happens this week. And, you know, we'll meet up to talk about it again next week. So that's all we have. Be safe and be great. And I'll see you guys next week.